This is video 2 of a 2-part video series on Rinaldi axes. Rinaldi axes have long been made in Italy and available in Europe, but they haven't been easily available in Canada until recently when a new shop opened up called La Cognée, so I bought two. The first video is about the little Rinaldi Milano, and this video is about the 1100 gram America pattern, making a handle for it and trying it out. I got my axes without handles so that I could make my own, but of course you can get them with handles and you can also get sheaths too, like I did, and the sheaths are pretty nice. Rinaldi is an Italian forge making traditional edge tools. They're known for their slip bit axes, as well as things like brush hooks, bill hooks, and sickles. These are hand forged, but they're not boutique axes, they're working tools. I put a link to a playlist giving more information about Rinaldi, the other axes they make besides the ones that I have, and some experiences of others who have tried them out. So the first thing that I noticed with this axe is that it's just got a massive bit, and it looks like it's really just meant to chop. I mean, look at the profile. Look at how thin the cheeks are. It has a very long bit and a very wide bit. The bit length is over 13 centimeters, maybe 132 millimeters, something like that. And that is more than 5 inches. That's like 5 1/8, a little bit more. It's more than 5 1/8. So this is really meant to chop. And the thing to remember about this is that it's only 1100 grams, so that's 2.5 pounds. That's boy's axe weight. And for a reference point, here's the Halsbrook Agdor Montreal, and this is a full size. Okay, this is a 3.5 pound Halsbrook Agdor Montreal, and the bit on the Rinaldi is longer. It's wider and it's longer. This overall design is bit heavy, and so that's quite different than the axes I usually work with. But I have chopped with bit heavy slip fit axes before. This one has a bit of a pull, but not much. So the balance is really more towards the bit. And I think that will lend itself to different applications and different techniques. So this should be an experience. I'm looking forward to trying it. I've got my Rinaldi America and Rinaldi Milano. And I think for the America, I've got this piece of Rock Elm that's crooked. It went around a big knot. And I think I can do something interesting with that. So hopefully I can make that happen. I was actually hoping I could get 2 handles out of this. Might not be quite enough there once I trim off the cracked parts and stuff, so maybe not. Maybe just 1. I mentioned that these aren't boutique axes, and the finishing is a bit rough. That's why they don't cost an arm and a leg, but it did mean that I had to do a little bit of work on my own. Not just sharpening, but also filing off some burrs that were left over from the grinder that cleaned up around the pole and the top and bottom of the axe. The bevel is between 20 and 15 degrees. I think it's probably close to 18, which is pretty aggressive, but something that the steel can handle. And then, of course, I put a micro bevel on it to make the edge more durable. Here's hopefully a better look at the axe. It's offset, and what that does is, for this style of axe, is very bit heavy. And so if you're like me and you're used to swinging an axe with a different balance, I thought it would be fun or interesting to try an offset style of handle. I didn't come up with this. Other people have made these. And it changes the balance. So actually, when you hold it back here, it is quite balanced. This way it worked out really well, considering that the shape is mostly dictated by the shape of the piece of wood that I had. Yeah, I got a little sled, got the axe, and I'm out here with a fallen over aspen. This fell over probably 6 months ago. Snapped off about 3 meters up the trunk, and I'm going to clean it up with the Rinaldi American pattern, 1100 grams. I did cut down a fairly large dead ash with it, but the camera I was using, this camera that I'm using now, my good one, was on the Fritz. I had an old camera, forgot how to do the settings, and yeah, the video's not really very usable, except it's just a voucher to prove I did it. But I've decided to show some of the footage of the green ash, even though it's really crummy, just because it was the first time I used the axe, and it brings up something that I think is kind of important, which is that sometimes with slip fit handles you need to break them in, and I'm going to show you how I handle that. So a couple times I've had to do this, but this handle I think shrunk a bit. The bolt came straight from outside, and then I've been keeping it in the house, so it shrunk a bit. So I'm having to, as I work it in, file off the high spots to get the handle to go tight again. But fortunately, I brought out a 4-way rasp to help with that. I've got a bit of foam video from the green ash, so there's some other things I want to show, so I'll probably come back to it. But let's watch this thing fall and then get back to the aspen. The geometry being so thin is good for limbing. Wide bit, like a wide cutting edge, a very thin bit. So Ben Scott style. 4 fingers. Okay. So yeah, this gets deep penetration. So when that comes really in handy, wide bit, thin, deep penetration, is when you're processing smaller diameter wood. You can slice very well, and then you can cut a deep, wide cut. And then you don't need to cut a notch to sever logs if they're small enough diameter. And the idea with an axe like this is that the diameter at which that works at is wider than for most other axes.
All right, let's try the buck split method.
The buck split technique is what Glenn Urquhart, who's a chopper in Alaska, calls it, but we both learned about it from Thibaut Mortellier in France. He's got a great YouTube channel. I'll link to that, and I'll specifically his video where he demonstrates how to do the technique, because he's a lot better at it than me.
Oh, look at that. Well, not quite how I imagined it. But...
And in general, he's a great source for information on how to use this sort of axe, like the Rinaldi and other traditional European slip fit axes and other axes. There's a lot of traditional techniques that are familiar to him that I'm just learning about basically from watching his channel, so check that out.
Alright, so this isn't really badly stuck, but it's pretty badly stuck. And I'm going to show you a way to deal with it on a slip fit. Because this, you know, thin bit, you really drive it in. Sometimes it gets really stuck, and then you just loosen the handle trying to get it out. So you can just actually take the handle out and go like that, and the head is free. If it's really stuck, not just kind of pretend stuck like that, you'll have to hit it a few more times. Alright, now, although this axe I think is, you know, at its best relative to other axes when it's severing a smaller diameter wood, you can definitely cut a notch with this, and it works pretty well. Okay. Now, another thing about this, so a couple things that are kind of nice about this pattern is, one, don't forget it's light. So I can swing it all day because it's only 2.5 pounds, roughly. And the other thing is that it has a very flat toe. So it's flat here, which means that you don't have to worry about as much about the toe going into the dirt when you're bucking on the ground. Right through that knot.
Aspen's pretty easy to chop, so I wanted to show how the Rinaldi America could do in tougher wood. So I'm going back to that green ash. It's been standing dead, so it's pretty dry, especially the top 2/3, and that is tough stuff. So here's how it performs in that kind of wood. One thing I'd like to mention is that I found the steel on the Rinaldi America to be very good. So it held an edge very, very well. It's just soft enough that you can maintain it with a file, which is perfect. I only had to touch up the edge once or twice while I was processing the green ash. And that was after busting through some pretty gnarly knots.
Will it split? Maybe a crack in it. Hey, look at that. Maybe the next one won't be so easy. You already have a crack in it too.
The Rinaldi America is definitely not optimized for splitting, given its thin cheeks and lightweight. You wouldn't use it on large saw cut rounds, for example, but it can split well enough to be a functional general purpose axe for cutting cordwood. If I know I'm going to be splitting a lot of large diameter or particularly tough wood, I think I would want a specialized splitting axe along as well if I'm using a light chopping axe like the Rinaldi America. So that's been my experience so far with the Rinaldi America slip fit Italian axe.
It's a great fun axe to swing and it does a lot of work, so I'm quite happy with it.